Welcome to DMM Downloads. We are podcasting another conversation about DMM between Jeff Crabtree and me, Rudy Rivera. Jeff and I are teamed together in Northern Colorado in a ministry we call DMM NOCO. DMM NOCO is unleashing disciple-making movements in Northern Colorado, and we thought it a good idea to start a podcast as a way to bring awareness and resourcing to ordinary people who are passionate about making multiplying disciple makers in our natural networks. Thanks for joining us in this journey. We hope you get a DMM download from this conversation. Well, hey, Jeff.
Rudy.
We're back for another DMM download episode, continuing the kickoff to 2025 and really trying to dial into what we call our habits training or habits of a multiplying disciple training. This week's episode will focus more on the habit of find. And we were just talking about what are we looking for? What are we finding? What does that even mean? Jeff, take it away. Tell us a little bit about find.
Yeah, well, at least in our systematic thought, and I think we're doing that here on the podcast, is the last time we talked about engaging with a lost world. That Jesus came to seek and save the lost, so we, being Christians or followers of Christ, we do the same thing. We step into lostness somewhere and engage that lostness. But what do we do when we're there? What are we looking for? What are we trying to find? That's why we call it find. And in the movement world, there's a unique biblical concept out of Luke 10 that's called the person of peace or the household of peace. Basically saying that God has already prepared a person or maybe a family or a household that are ready to receive the message that we're bringing that then can be implemented into their lives, but then spread out into their social network. So we're trying to find a person of peace or a household of peace.
Right. So how do we know who that person of peace is?
Well, I wish it was real easy, but I don't think it is. And again, we're all trying to learn, but it's that we begin to engage various, people or a situation to see if they're open. We believe that John 6 says that nobody comes to the Father unless the Father draws them. So that's one of the key things we're looking for when we engage people, to see if those are the ones we're supposed to minister to, or they're persons of peace or a household of peace. Do we sense that God's drawing them, meaning that we begin to ask questions or engage with them? Do they seem open? Do they seem welcoming? Are they curious? I'll probably use an illustration that happened a couple days ago, and I won't expand it too long. I mentioned to you that I was on a phone call looking for home insurance and car insurance, and just happened to be talking to a young man, and he asked me what I did, and I said, well, I'm a pastor and a life coach. And so he began to ask all these kinds of questions, and I kept kind of go back, well, can we get back to the quote about the car or the house? And he's kept wanting to ask me questions, and I kept downloading, and he kept wanting. So whether that was he's a person of peace, do you see we're seeing, instead of me, mentioning something, and they go, oh, you're a pastor, or you're talking spirituality or the kingdom of God, thank you, but no thank you. So the first step is, are they being drawn, and do they seem welcoming and opening and engaging with us in this spiritual conversation?
Yeah, I like. I'm struck by Luke 10, and I think there's I'm going to probably get it wrong, with the phrasing of, if your peace rests on that household or that person, can you put that kind of phraseology into that story a bit? Like, how did you sense? What does it mean to sense that your peace is resting on somebody?
Yeah, and that's maybe more of a subjective thing. What does it mean about peace? I would probably just call it favor, maybe. That there's a favor upon the situation in which it feels like God is in the middle of it and we're to pursue it, rather than us trying to force it or pressure it. It just feels like there's a grace or a favor of God or a peace that we're talking about, that, yeah, this is the right thing. Because remember, it says the wisdom from above is pure, it's peaceable, meaning, yeah, this seems like the right thing. Rather than, again, I'm going to do it on my own, or I'm going to knock down the door, or I'm going to force it, or they need to listen to me. Then it would be more carnal or fleshly oriented, where this feels like the Spirit of God is here. He's doing something, and we need to continue to move forward with it.
Yeah, wow. Well, we could say a lot about that. So do you, let's say you've engaged, you're finding a person of peace, you find favor in that situation. Do you have any sense for how do we practice this habit? What's next? What else is involved?
Well, yeah, in our process or our pathway for movement, the next one, which we'll talk about, is inviting people into a space that we call a discovery Bible study or a discovery study. And so, because you can get somebody that you're engaging with, and there seems to be something going on there, but you're just supposed to minister to them in that moment, like, can I pray for you? Or I'm sorry to hear about that. Or hey, you might want to go see a counselor or whatever. That's different. That what we're inviting them into, if we can sense that, is finding what we say, and it's kind of in the engage piece we talked about last time, is finding a place of their discouragement or disillusionment that only Jesus is the answer. Only the Spirit of God is answered. Only God is the answer. And so when we're finding them and they seem open to that, this person of peace, then we bridge the gap to say, would you be interested to find us together and do what we call a discovery study, where we open up the passages of Scripture, the passages of the Bible, and see what God has to say about that. So at that point, if they go, whoa, the spirituality thing, you're trying to get me to believe what you believe, or you're trying to connect me to God, I'm not interested. Well, then we would say that though it seemed like maybe we found a person of peace, it's like, no, maybe we need to just go ahead and say thank you, bless you, and we move on. But if they say, yeah, I'd like to be able to find out more, and we might be able to say, well, do you have some family or friends or coworkers or neighbors that might be interested in learning as well, because they're struggling with the same things? And they say, yeah, I've got, family member or friend, and yeah, let's gather several of us. That would indicate for us we might have found a person of peace. And does that make sense? That then we want to keep moving forward. If we feel a resistance, and again, we're trying to be led by the Spirit of God, but if we feel like, they're really not open, well, we found somebody that seemed a little bit interested, and we could minister that, but they're probably not persons of peace.
Okay. So do you, I told you kind of before we started recording, I have found this habit to be challenging, especially when I was first being exposed to it. And I still feel challenged by it. But, maybe 5 years ago, when I first started leaning into this habit, I started thinking like, my training took me back to something more like engage everyone. So you go out and knock on every door, or for example, maybe you, I worked on a college campus for many years, so it was put out a table, and every person that walks by, you engage with them in some form or fashion. But that's not really what we're talking about here as much. Am I saying that right? This is a paradigm shift from that strategy, if you will, of evangelism, like drop every leaflet into every hand. This is more engaging, praying, looking for particular people that God's already drawing. Am I saying that correctly, John?
Yeah, I think so. It's maybe just a unique strategy. The other, like you talked about, we need to go share our faith and share with anybody and everybody, or all the pamphlets or leaflets. That's more of a shotgun strategy. But it seems like in what we're talking about in movement with finding a person of peace, it's a very strategic find that person. Again, it's really looking at Luke 10, I think, I'm just being honest with you, from with a new set of lenses, a new set of glasses spiritually. What does it mean when Jesus said he sent them out 2 by 2 into the villages he was going to go to, and don't greet anybody on the road. Now, we won't get distracted that way, but that's pretty interesting, is that God has you on a particular assignment. They don't want you to get distracted. And that when you find a person of peace or a household of peace, stay there and basically set up camp, and I'll use that situation to broaden or multiply what I want to do. So yes, it's a very, it's not shotgun at all. It's very specific. Find that location, that person, those people that I've already prepared their hearts, because I want to multiply the gospel from that particular setting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's, to me, that's such a high calling. It's a challenging calling. Again, back to the way I was trained. You know, I think my training would have taken me back to more, to use the phrase, the shotgun approach. But also, let's say somebody did respond to the invitation of Christ. Then it was like, okay, bless you, and moving on. You know, and I find the person of peace principle there, the habit, part of the challenge is the staying part. Is, you know, if you find a person of peace, Luke 10 instructs them to stay, eat the food that they provide for you, go into their home, be with them. And you get a sense of like time, like at least in my reading, you know, or in other places you read the scripture, like the apostles or disciples might have stayed a couple of years with people sometimes. And I'm going, whoa, a couple of years, Lord? Like, I was trained, move to the next one, you know? And so that's why I find it, part of the reason why I find it a challenging habit. Do you have anything else you'd want to say about the state?
Well, I think it's a very intriguing and inviting concept in the movement world to find persons of peace. I know, talking and interfacing with some people that are doing DMM globally, they would say something to this effect, that many times you in the West, you're very sincere, but you're maybe not very strategic. And when you really probably dive in a little deeper into Luke 10, Jesus wasn't asking them about sincerity. He was asking them to be very strategic in what he had already been doing, setting up, or was going to do. And that's hard for us in the West, because we think, you know, we're supposed to love everybody and minister to everybody and share our faith with everybody. So the concept is, no, it's not everybody. It's following the Lord in his strategy, that he's already got some people or a person ready to go, that we can't get diverted or get distracted by our sincerity. Stay on track and be very strategic in finding that person or persons of peace.
Okay, this might be a bit of a stretch, but I'm thinking of, if you're listening to this podcast, and let's say you've sat in a evangelism training recently, or you're in a church service on a Sunday morning, and the pastor gets up and say, church, we're going to go out the doors, and we're going to go and be a light to the world. We're going to be a city on a hill. We're going to go, AKA, share the gospel. What a great call. And maybe you feel like, well, I want to do that. But here we are on this podcast saying, it seems like there's a different strategy Jesus might have. I'm kind of putting those worlds together a bit. Can you speak to the person who might have recently heard the call to evangelism? What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, well, I think God's sovereign and big enough that he probably uses a lot of different strategies. And if that's the model that somebody has learned or is encouraged in, then that's great. But again, disciple-making movements, DMM, is it's a certain kind of pathway and strategy that we think is extremely biblical. So they would have to kind of come and learn more about what we say and the reason for that. And I think I would probably say this, that undergirding all of that is a long-term thought about, we want to multiply the gospel. We don't want to just add the gospel. So if you just go out and go knocking on doors and and some of the E strategy, whatever that may be, is not bad, but that's probably in our mind is an addition strategy where person of peace is a multiplying strategy. So it's long term, not just what you do right now, but it's what do you have in view long term. And we believe the person of peace strategy allows for multiplication or reproducing more disciples.
Okay. And as we kind of close here, any thoughts on, for the people who are listening, who are out engaging, who are out, being with people, with the lost, but have not found a person of peace? Do you have any thoughts for that?
Yeah, well, I think any of us have been in movement, have tried this and found many people that we thought, I found a person of peace, I found a person of peace. But at some point as we begin to move forward, we recognize that maybe they weren't as open as we thought they were. So I think there's one of the things that I think we're all learning, and you're learning, and I think I'm learning it, is still believe in the biblical concept and principle. And even if you haven't found it, keep going, keep going. I think we're learning sometimes perseverance because we so believe it, and we believe it's Jesus and the Spirit of God leading that strategy, that we just keep going. And I would just simply say that if people catch on this concept of person of peace and they want to learn more, they should contact us. We'd like to be able to dialogue or discuss, and maybe we can do another session, and I can tell you, the 3 or 4 or 5 persons of peace that we found, how we found them, and what developed from that. So I just say that if they're listening and they're curious and want to know more or how to do that, get in contact with us.
That's great, Jeff. Thanks for sharing this download with us. It's really helpful. Thanks, Jeff, for that engaging download. In DMM, we like to say that disciples are learners. I know I'm learning a lot from my conversations with you, Jeff. From all of us in DMM NOCO, we hope you got a DMM download from the conversation today. Don't forget to leave this podcast a review wherever you are listening online. If you found this conversation helpful, please head over to our site, dmmnoco.com, where you can find more content for your DMM journey, including a Self-Paced Habits of a Multiplying Disciple course. The course is designed to give you practical next steps to becoming a DMM practitioner and multiplying disciple maker. You can take that course for free at dmmnoco.com. We will be back next week with another engaging DMM download episode. Until then, may you hear from God through His Spirit and take simple steps of obedience in what you hear.